My opponent, has spent the last 3 years sitting on her hands with no strategic financial plan ever developed. In fact, not once in all her years as a commissioner, 6 or 8 I believe, and as mayor, 3 years, has she once ever bothered to create a plan, to draft a plan, to pick up a plan. Ladies and gentlemen, I created my plan, which you'll see in your packet, before I decided to file. Because I believe that's the least I owe the citizens of Miami Beach. At least before I run, I should have a clear idea as to what the issues are and why I'm running. That's the least you deserve. Now let me get into the crystal plan briefly. Again, if you turn to your packet, I believe it's about 4th or 5th page. The beauty of my plan is this. My plan increases the quantity and quality of services you get. It brings down unemployment. And it rids us of certain inefficiencies, all without raising a single dime in taxes. It's what we call in economic terms building economies of scale and economies of scope, and it works. First point on the plan. As many of you have read in the New Times, the Herald, and elsewhere, we have had, hopefully we won't have much longer, but we have had a serious offense in the terms of milking and abusing overtime hours. Every department has been guilty of this. I've heard stories, I hope they're not true, of cops purposely arresting people, whereas otherwise they would not during the last minutes of their shift to get overtime. I hope that's not true. But certainly overtime represents 25% of police and maybe firefighters' compensation, certainly police. Okay? The most sinister thing about overtime is that it's factored into pension liabilities. Whereby we're on, this is how the game is played. Public employees know this, particularly police and fire. The pension benefits are based on the last 3 years typically, 2.5, 3 years, 3.5 years, depending on the contract, on average of one's tenure. So what our public employees do is that they go out of their way to work overtime in the last 3 years. We've had cases of police officers getting only 3 or 4 hours of sleep, crashing into other cars, one case almost killing a bicyclist, I think in Hialeah. Our city is subject to lawsuits galore in this alone, because they want to get the overtime, because they want the tax-free compensation of $100,000 to $120,000 a year for the rest of their lives, which we can't afford. I would love to, myself, be able to get $100,000 a year tax-free for the rest of my life, as we do. And in theory, I have no problem with getting it, but we can't afford it. We are going bankrupt. Now is the time to stop spending. Now is the time to rein in pension funds. Now, I piggyback on that notion, and again, I don't want to insult your intelligence and read the plan verbatim, but I also speak about using other police forces when overtime is necessary so that it's not factoring in pension liabilities. I'll let you do that of your own volition. But in tandem with that, what we will do to bring down the unemployment rate is create a citizens' watch force. As you know, it's long been a complaint of mine and many of my neighbors that our police spend too much time in their cars driving around and not enough time walking the beat. This pertains directly to an issue I will discuss later, the recent arsons in the College Park neighborhood. So hold that thought, I'll get to that later. We have a 13.2% unemployment rate, higher than the state average, much higher than the national average. That is not tenable. Don't expect all these people to be law-abiding citizens when they're all unemployed consistently. The crime rates are going up, they will continue to go up if we don't bring the unemployment rates down. We are paying through our nose and our quality of life will continue to deteriorate. So what I want to do, with a multitude of savings we will achieve by cutting down overtime hours and reforming the police department and other departments, is hire a citizens' watch force armed with mace and walkie-talkies only, to go through the alleys that the cops don't go through, to walk the beats that the cops heretofore have refused to walk. And when they spot crimes in progress, and they will, my best friend's daughter was just held up for a friend's cell phone the other day, not too late at night, mind you, They will report those crimes to the police immediately, and those people will be arrested. Because we don't have beat cops, our police crime statistics are horrific. Only 15 to 20% of crimes committed in Miami Beach are ever solved. 15 to 20%. The national average is between 26 and 30%. Even that's low. 15 to 20%. You feel safe under those circumstances? We're paying up the wazoo for a police department. And mind you, don't blame most cops. Most cops didn't negotiate this contract. It's a union that's doing their job. They have. But most cops are getting paid over $90,000 a year, and we're only solving 50% of our crimes. Does that sound like a good business deal to you, or does it sound to me? Point number 3. I have received time and time again complaints from my gay friends and gay tourists I run into about harassment at the hands of Miami Beach police. I would like to believe that they're made up, hyperbolized, inflated, but there's no doubt in my mind it's not true. As you may read from my bio, I just realized I forgot to include my bio, but you can find it on the website crystalmayor.com. I served on several condominium boards. And people knew me when I rode the elevator. I was shocked one day when a certain Miami Beach police officer, who shall remain nameless since I'm a gentleman, rode the elevator with me in uniform, with his girlfriend, with me, who he clearly recognized as the secretary of the board, and 4 other people, and said to his girlfriend in front of all of us, referencing some area in South Beach, quote, "There are too many fags down there." In uniform, there are too many fags down there. Does it surprise you that someone like this might be the crap out of a gay citizen at 3 o'clock in the morning when no one's watching? Think about it. Why does this happen? This happens because this is not New York, this is not LA, this is not a city that has learned its lessons. This is a city that has an internal affairs department that is so internal it might as well not exist. When you call internal affairs to file a complaint, you're filing with some sergeant who has to deal with the people you're complaining with on a regular basis. You can't blame him, it's human nature. David, if I have to deal with you on a regular basis, am I going to call you a piece of garbage? Am I going to smack you around? No, I can do business with you the next day. So of course I'm going to slap you on the wrist. Bad cop, don't do that again. And of course it happens again. What we need, like we have in New York and LA, is an external internal affairs, located in City Hall, half staffed by police sergeants and half staffed by professional citizens who will assess police complaints on an ad hoc basis, refer the most serious ones directly to the FBI, and mete out punishment internally for the less serious ones. Point number 4, flooding. I don't know about you, but I live near 78th and Carlisle, one of the worst flooding spots in the city of Miami Beach. The others are Alton between 5th and 12th, Sheridan Avenue between 40th and 41st Street, and about 3 others. Now, in defense of the city, there is something called neap time, which happens about 2 or 3 months out of the year. Very little we can do during those circumstances. But during the other 9 months out of the year, we've had occasion where it doesn't rain for 2 or 3 weeks. The ground is very dry. Suddenly we're faced with a torrential rainpour, and those same problematic areas flood and flood big time. Hundreds of cars have been totaled over the last few years during these floods. Not to mention the great inconvenience, not to mention the economic cost of storefronts, especially that one on Sheridan and 41st I'm thinking of, that jewelry store. Flooded to the point where the water goes inside. I have a simple solution. Because unlike my opponent, I know how to think outside the box. I have good friends who work for American Airlines. You think when it rains, it doesn't rain on MIA or Fort Lauderdale Airport? Do planes take off when it rains, except for most torrentially windfall rains? Of course they take off. Why? Because American Airlines has what they call flood trucks. They go around and they suck up the excess water, and they dump the water in a reservoir. We don't have reservoirs, we don't have Indian Creek, we don't have the beach. You want to spend $10 billion we don't have, and no stimulus money is not coming. You want to spend $10 billion we don't have, restructuring our entire roadways and infrastructure? When all we can do is for less than 0.1% of that cost, rent run trucks from American Airlines and others, and soak up those problematic areas. Again, it doesn't help during neap time, but it helps for the other 10 months out of the year. That will save citizens tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages over the long run. Point number 5, not the most essential point, but useful. We have the most beautiful waterways anywhere in the world, except for maybe Venice, and I travel all around the world. Why don't we monetize them? Why don't we capitalize on them? Why don't we use them? Fort Lauderdale wishes they had our waterways, and they use them. They have a water taxi. We have congestion on 71st and 79th Street Causeway, JFK Causeway. We have congestion on 41st. We have congestion, especially now, on MacArthur. Not to mention the drunk drivers that come home drinking and driving and get into accidents and kill people. Don't you see the benefit of the ferry service? One from South Beach directly to Bayside, and I've spoken to Rigolato, who likes the idea, and one that stops periodically 41st Street, 50th Street, 63rd Street, Normandy Isle, Mount Sinai, and then Bayside. Granted, it takes people longer, but people like to read on the way to work. They'll save gas, they'll save money, not to mention the tremendous tourist attraction that'll be. It'll definitely be financially accretive within 5 years. And if you're worried about the cost, I'm a strong, fiscally responsible person. If you're worried about the cost, we can make it a consortium. We can make it a private-public venture. So be it. We have things we're not using. They are accretive. Let's use them. Let's restore the glory of Miami Beach. Let's put the money back in our pockets where it belongs. Skip through some of these. Obviously, there's a lot of red tape. Every day I get complaints from businesses about the exorbitant cost of permits and typically the 4 to 8 months waiting time required for a permit. Except for the few people who have connections and they get it in 2 to 3 weeks. That's not my Miami Beach. That's not my America. Every citizen will be treated fairly when I'm mayor, and if not, I will call the building department, the code enforcement department out. You'll know their name, you'll know their number, you'll be encouraged to legally harass them. Every citizen should be dealt with in the same parameters, with the same parameters. There should be no discrimination. And there should be not a single case. We should be attracting business. There should not be a single case of a business that takes 8 months for a permit. This is absurd. This is Miami Beach. Look around. It takes 8 months for a permit. We need to be attracting business, not repelling them and sending them to Fort Lauderdale. Back to employees, you would think, paying on average our employees $70,000 to $75,000 a year, you would think that all of our employees would be highly educated, sophisticated, certainly be fluent in English, hopefully be fluent in both English and Spanish. I know for a fact, these are not bad people, but I know for a fact, of at least 10 employees who make over $70,000 a year. Mind you, in this economy, I'm not making $70,000 a year. We have over 10 employees, and I personally know, maybe 100, maybe 200, we're making over $70,000 a year who are not fluent in English, and some of them aren't even proficient. When I call them, they pass the phone to somebody else. This is absurd. We are getting ripped off.